Kornheiser, he says, from Los Angeles.
Well, I mean, we got LeBron news here. There's no Bulls news, huh? I got to be where the news is, Tony. I'm right here.
I think the news is in Atlanta. I think most people think
there's no news in Atlanta.
I think there's news in Atlanta.
There ain't no news.
I got in my car today. It was 16 when I got in my car today. Not as bad as Chicago.
15 in D.C.
16. 16.
Wind
But
chill?
not as bad as wind chill around, 8, 9. Not as bad as the Midwest. Not as bad as Des Moines, Minneapolis,
my
Chicago.
Pete's tough.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, does LeBron deserve a fine? How interested should the Lakers be in Kyrie Irving and his free agency about to hit college football? But we begin today with the long-awaited NFL Commissioner's press conference at the Super Bowl. This afternoon, Roger Goodell finally publicly addressed the terrible no call that got the Rams into the Super Bowl ahead of the Saints. And Goodell said, quote, "It's a play that should have been called. We understand the frustration Saints fans feel. Whenever the officiating is part of a discussion, it's not a good outcome for us. We know that. But we also know our officials are human. We will look at instant replay again, but technology is not going to solve all of those issues," unquote. Wilbon, did Goodell sufficiently address this issue?
No, he sufficiently addresses very few, if any, issues, Tony. He addressed it and he sort of said what you knew he would say, which was the minimum. He did that, and he did it only at a regularly scheduled commissioners conference. Yeah. He had 10 days to do this. He didn't do jack. But what upset me more was Roger Goodell, after acknowledging the role that Atlanta, where the Super Bowl is, that venue has played in the great long struggle for civil rights. He then didn't take any opportunity to address the situation with African-American coaches and their plight this offseason. And Tony, it angered me to the point where I think he is just acting with a lack of courage. Either his unwillingness or his inability to address this straight on, like an adult who's responsible for a league. It comes off to me as gutless. And I turn the channel. I don't want to watch him. I can't watch him fail to address issue after issue and just talk around it or sidestep it. I find it disgraceful.
I'm going to go back to the first part of the question, that specific thing about the Saints and the Rams for a second. It was disappointing to me because I felt you waited 11 days for this. You couldn't acknowledge this publicly, and all you basically said was what you were going to say 11 days ago. My problem with it is that Roger Goodell always talks about the great fans the league has. If you watched the whole press conference, and I understand why you bailed on it.
I turned it off.
But if you watched it, he would have talked about our great fans. There was 100% unanimity in this. The fans of the league deserve a public explanation from a commissioner.
Immediately.
And that's what you're going to do. I understand you don't have a plan going forward. I understand it's a bad look for the league, but you didn't say anything today that you couldn't or shouldn't have said 11 days ago. Mike, I've watched a lot of commissioners over a long period of time, as have you. Two of them stand out to me. Two things really stood out. One was Faye Vincent, taking up for Bart Giamatti and saying about Pete Rose, you're never getting back in here.
That's right.
Never. And one was Paul Tagliabue saying to Boogie Benson, you're not moving out of New Orleans after Katrina. You're not doing it. We're keeping this city alive for football, and I don't see that ever in Roger Goodell.
I don't think he attaches himself to any need to be accountable. As long as everybody's making money and they're clicking onto the games, that's all he cares about. He's there for the owners,
I guess.
And I don't need to hear his other junk. We ended yesterday's show posing the question whether the NBA would punish anybody for going public with this Anthony Davis trade request. We got our answer last night when the NBA fined Davis $50,000. The league cites a plainly stated rule: the players, and this includes their agents, cannot publicly demand trades. This episode is complicated, of course, because Rich Paul represents both Davis and LeBron James, who stands to directly benefit if AD is sent to the Lakers. So then, Tony, do you see grounds for LeBron being fined for any possible role in all this?
This has to be a trick question because, of course, finding Anthony Davis is ridiculous. It doesn't get to the heart of this. That is just done for show. LeBron James is guilty of tampering and colluding. Of course he is, because of the intricate relationship with Rich Paul and the company that represents LeBron and everything that LeBron does.
But isn't Anthony Davis responsible for that? He selected this gentleman to be his agent.
Yeah, and that's fine, and LeBron should stroke a check for that fine. And not Anthony Davis. This is about LeBron James, who is more powerful than any other player, I believe, in any other sport. Now, he can hide behind this deal, Mike, that a player is allowed to say, oh, I like this other player. A player can do that. But my position, Mike, would be that LeBron James is more than a player. He's a conglomerate at this point, and the rules don't apply to him.
Well, but this rule, he didn't violate this rule. He didn't come out and demand a trade. Look, Anthony Davis, this guy, Rich Paul, if he works for LeBron, he works for Anthony Davis, too, where Anthony Davis can get one of a million other agents.
That's right.
So this rule is there, it's plainly stated, and in this case, Rich Paul, now, if somebody wants to stroke a check, and I suspect this will happen anyway,
Rich Paul
it will be Rich Paul stroking the check.
But that's LeBron's money. But it's all LeBron.
You know, let me ask you something. Anthony Davis is going to make 200 and some million, of which Rich Paul gets a percentage. You mean it ain't Anthony Davis? The Anthony Davis money doesn't spend to you?
No, that's fine. But finding Anthony Davis and not finding LeBron is ridiculous to me.
Well, you can't find LeBron on this. He didn't announce a trade. He didn't. That's a fact.
No, he orchestrates all of it, Mike.
It doesn't say you can't orchestrate. It says you cannot publicly announce a trade.
I mean, if you look at the history of sports, if you look at economic opportunity, social opportunity, however you want to describe the sort of freedom and empowerment of players, Jackie Robinson, Kurt Flood, LeBron James, right?
LeBron James may be third on that list.
He's right there.
But you know what he didn't do? He didn't announce a trade.
No.
Rich Paul did.
He just sent,
in the name of Anthony Davis.
He sent his
and
boy out
50.
There. He sent him out there. Hey, Rich, go ahead. Here we go with Kyrie Irving. Our old Washington Post colleague Rick Bucher, now with Bleacher Report, writes that Kyrie Irving is genuinely interested in reuniting with LeBron James on the Lakers. Quote, that is for real, unquote. A source close to the Lakers told Bucher. Wilbon, can you really see Kyrie getting back together with LeBron after all that water over the dam?
Yeah, Tony, we've already had Kyrie, I don't know, was Instagram or tweeting or whatever, about how he reached out to LeBron a few weeks ago.
Called him.
And said, was it a phone call?
Yeah.
And he said, maybe you were right about some of that stuff last year and the year before. Of course, Tony, this is not the 70s or the 80s or the 90s, which I have current, and some former players remind me. This group of players, in expressing themselves, and I give a standing ovation to that, and better controlling their own lives and being able to speak out on almost any topic, it also comes with another attribute, with another characteristic. There's not a lot of conviction to whom they play with or where they play as long as it benefits. So whom they play with, Tony, the guys can hate each other 1 minute, and this happened in the old NBA a little bit. Dennis Rodman played with Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and they had to hate each other the previous 8 years before Rodman joined the team. It's not unprecedented.
So here we go again, Mike. For the third day in a row, we have two LeBron stories. They're all about LeBron. Anthony Davis about LeBron. Kyrie Irving is about LeBron. This is mind-blowing to me. Kyrie Irving, not 10 years ago, no, last year. Last year said, I want to get away specifically from LeBron James. I want my own team. I want to do this with my own team.
That's right.
Now the notion that he would go back and be second fiddle, as he would be to LeBron, I cannot wrap myself around this. You're going to tell me next, oh, yeah, Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, they're going to go play together somewhere. No, I mean, this just doesn't, and that's great for the league. The thing about this is everybody said about Boston that the reason Anthony Davis might go to Boston is because he's close with Kyrie. Well, but if Kyrie goes to L.A., then they trade for Anthony Davis, and they're still close. They win.
Tony, no matter how powerful Michael Jordan was, there were people like Reggie Miller in Indiana and Patrick Ewing in New York and Stockton Malone in Salt Lake City.
And they wanted to beat him.
And they said, we want to beat him.
That's right.
We don't want to join him. And so what I'm wondering, this is a question, so I don't want to have any players say, oh, you're hating. No, I'm asking.
Oh.
Is anybody other than the Warriors bold enough to take on LeBron? Anybody want to take him on, or do they just want to join him because they're scared of him? I wonder. I want somebody to answer that question for me. Who out there in the NBA, other than the Rockets and the Warriors are bold enough to take on LeBron?
I don't have great faith in anything Kyrie Irving says publicly, but if this happened, you just go, wow.
So that wouldn't surprise me. A lot of other things might. Let's take a look at a very convoluted story addressed this morning by college football ace reporter Tony Barnhart. He writes that Tate Martell, who was already transferred from Ohio State to Miami, is petitioning to skip sitting out a season to play right away this September. Used to be everybody had to sit out when transferring, then grad students were accepted, and then a bunch of other exceptions crept into the rule. Martell says that Urban Meyer bailing on Ohio State should allow him to play right away at the U. Barnhart argues this would effectively open up free agency in college football. Tony, you okay with that happening?
So let's just push aside for the moment the fact that this particular player said, I'm never leaving Ohio State and I welcome the competition. And let's push aside for the moment the notion that somehow Urban Meyer leaving was terrible for him, since Ryan Day, who ascended to that job, was his very specific coach, but who's now saying, you know, I prefer this other guy. But let's push that aside, and I'll deal with this specific issue. Student athletes, they don't go to school for the school. They go for the coaches. If the coach leaves, to me, that's okay. You can leave too. You can play where you want, when you want, because you have nothing to do with the school in most cases. Kids on this level, you're there to play football and you're there for a coach. I'm okay with this, Mike.
Tony, I am to a degree. I'm going to disagree with you that says when you say that players have nothing to do with the school. But that may be the case in, 15 or 20.
Not necessarily
maybe,
your
of
school.
The 117. I'm not even
State.
just talking about my school.
Ohio State.
The rule is there just for this reason, because you're supposed to sign that letter of intent to play for the school.
But they don't. They play for the coach.
Okay, but they sign that letter. Now, if you want to be a stickler for holding to the rule, then students or their parents or whoever influences them to make that decision, then they've got some responsibility too. I'm not going to absolve student athletes of all the responsibility of their selection. But I generally agree with you when Urban Meyer up and says, after promising, I'm going to be here 4 years for your kid,
I'm going to make
and
one
then that
exception,
kid might
Mike.
be around 2 years,
I'm going to make one exception. I don't think you should be able to play right away in the same conference. Because let's look at the SEC, where all of Nick Saban's guys get a job in the SEC as a head coach. That's poaching. So I don't agree with that. But you could pick any other school, any other conference. You know what? Get there Wednesday, play Thursday. That's okay. Let's take a break. Coming up, how much razzle-dazzle should we expect out of Sean McVay on Sunday? We're going to ask Steve Young.
We'll also ask him which defense he'd rather face, Patriots or the Rams. Tony, I forgot Barkley when I said people who weren't afraid of Jordan. Charles and the Suns and the Sixers, they weren't afraid. He wasn't afraid of Jordan.
Now they all get on the
same team.
same
But they
team.
weren't scared.
When dominoes.
Question, how a person game plans for a Super Bowl. Do you place your faith in the bread and butter stuff that you've done all year, or are you tempted to go razzle-dazzle and do something completely, outside the lines?
All the millennials just fell over. Razzle-dazzle, Chicago. What'd you say, Richard Gere said
Richard Gere, yeah.
Razzle. You got to stay with what brought you. I mean, that's no question. But these are two tip-of-the-spear innovative teams. And so they're going to come with 15 innovations because they do that every week. And so in many ways, the question is kind of contextual to the fact that if it was just a bread and butter kind of a team, you do not want to go throwing in some razzle-dazzle for the Super Bowl. You will lose in the first quarter. But both these teams are razzle-dazzle, right by your definition, Tony. They want to bring, they don't have 5 things to do in the first quarter to kind of show you some new wrinkles. They have 5 in the first quarter, 5 in the second quarter, and 10 at halftime. And so this is going to be a lot of fun to watch both these coaches bring out everything that they have, all the razzle-dazzle in the world.
Understandably, Tom Brady would not give Jared Goff any advice on how to win the Super Bowl. But you, I think, Steve, have 3 of those rings to say you played on a winning team 3 times in the Super Bowl. So what advice would you have for Jared Goff going into this thing?
I would go into the locker room with Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald and just tell them, look, whatever I'm making today, if we win $342,000, it is yours. Because if you play great football and you dominate like you did against New Orleans Saints last week, I can make all kind of screw-ups. I can go down 14-0. I can throw a pick or 2, and we can still win. And so that's the key. I don't think there's look, they faced the beast last week in New Orleans down 14-0 and then come back and win in a championship format. There's nothing about being new to the Super Bowl that Jared Goff, he's going to be overwhelmed. No, this is a neutral field. It's going to be a lot easier than last week against a team that's, not as explosive, we'll say. It's still obviously a very great football team, but just not, you don't have to score 45 to win the football game. And to me, I think more than anything, if that defensive line shows up and puts Tom Brady in a bind, that's the key.
Let's get to Tom Brady. Tom Brady is 41 years old. All the questions about Brady are always the same. You know, are you going to quit? When are you going to quit? It's always about that. He could, if he wins this game, go out on top. How much appeal does going out on top have to a top drawer player?
Tony, everyone dreams of it, right? I mean, that's what you want. Ray Lewis went out on top. It's the best. But Tom Brady, he lives on top. He wins the Super Bowl every year. He doesn't have, what are you talking about? They're not even having a replacement considered. He's 42. What plan do the Patriots to replace Tom Brady at 42? None. He sits on top. He goes to the Super Bowl every year. It doesn't matter. He's on top. He lives on top. Going out on top, it's going to happen by definition. So if he wins this year, what would he say? Oh, I don't want to win next year. He's going to, forget it. There's no, Tom's set. He's different than everybody else. It's over.
Steve, I know with absolute certainty you played against tougher defenses in the NFC playoffs one year after another than either one of these teams has defensively. But which one of these defenses would you rather face?
I go back to the Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald. Last week against the Saints, he took Max Unger, who's an all-pro great player, center, and he just jammed him back 3 yards. And that's what he can do if he wants to. And it feels like sometimes Ndamukong kind of shows up and sometimes he doesn't. And the games he doesn't, I watch for the first quarter, and when he doesn't, I'm like, it's going to be a longer game for the Rams. When he does, and he dominates like that with Aaron Donald sprinting around on the side, I knew the Saints, that the Rams might get beat, but I knew that they weren't out of it at 14-0. They're not going to be out of any game. And so if they play that kind of defensive front, the Rams, I pick the Rams. But without that, and a more placid Rams in the middle of the season, those games where they kind of disappeared, got run all over, then I pick the Patriots.
Okay, so then real quick, we put it to you right now. What are you thinking? Which way are you leaning?
Well, I picked the Rams, beginning of the season. This is the team that I said if they don't win the Super Bowl, it'll be their own fault. I still kind of believe that. I think talent-wise, they should run every team out of the building, but they don't. And this is a team that you can't run out of the building because they don't allow it. The Chiefs should have run this team out of the building. They didn't. Not only that, they didn't touch Tom Brady. Tom Brady goes to Kansas City. Tony, who goes to Kansas City doesn't get touched? It's not right. I mean, that actually happened. So in my mind, look, it's the Rams. I'm going to say Rams. But my gosh, what are they just made a deal that they don't touch Tom Brady? Who goes to Kansas City untouched, Tony? Nobody.
Well, if you touch him, Steve, if you touch him, you're going to get 15 yards.
I don't know.
So maybe the plan is to just stay the hell away from him.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you as
Steve.
always.
All right, guys.
Let's take one last break, but still to come, Cam Newton has an update on his injured shoulder.
And Greg Popovich rips his team after a dramatic win. Nobody like Pop.
How does...
To the camera, everybody. Happy time, people. Happy 64th birthday, Michael Thompson. The number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft in 1978 out of the University of Minnesota. Thompson started with Portland, but was a key member on 2 Lakers title teams, 87 and 88. He's probably most famous now for being the father of Klay Thompson, but 2 of his other sons have played professional sports as well. That is some athletic genes.
All-time great father-son combos. Michael and Klay Thompson, Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. Anybody else? Did I miss somebody?
Some of the Boons, maybe, the baseball Boons. Happy anniversary, James Harden. On this day last year, Harden dropped the first ever 60-point triple-double in NBA history. I don't want to sound critical by pointing out that Harden was 11 for 32 last night. But every time he gets the ball, he initiates contact with his offhand and flops around to draw a call. But again, I'm not being critical.
Well, he got called for it last night with the game on the line, and he wanted some bogus call, and the officials didn't give it to him. They made the right call, and the Rockets in this case lost.
Also the Hardaways, Mike. Happy trails to another road game for Kansas. The 11th-ranked Jayhawks lost to Texas last night, their second road loss in a row and 5th on the season. Bill Self said after the game, quote, "The pieces just don't quite fit yet. We've got good pieces. I've just got to do a better job of figuring it out," unquote. Wilbon, where is Kansas in the WPI, the Wilbon Power Index?
I think there's 7 or 8. By the way, Tony, I forgot the Mannings, and I forgot Grant and Calvin Hill.
Absolutely. One omission, LeBron went through a full practice today, but will not play in tomorrow's game against the Clippers. You're coming home, you were there to see LeBron play. Big finish,
I'm
quick.
staying.
Cam Newton says his shoulder is, quote, better than he thought it would be after last week's surgery. Your thoughts?
I only have good thoughts. That's good. Maybe he wants to go through the Nerf ball stage. Bob Kraft says he has no reservations about extending the Golden Boy's contract beyond 19. Should he?
No, he's been in 3 straight Super Bowls. No. Neymar will be out 10 weeks with a foot injury. You're Mr. Soccer. What does that mean?
He's going to miss both legs of the Manchester United Champions League deal, Tony. That's what it means. Pop says his team gave a pathetic performance in a win over the Suns. Pop, is he going to lighten up, Tony?
No, that's the way he coaches. That's who he is. Stop. Don't argue with success. Your Knicks have lost 10 in a row. Do I hear 11 tonight against the Mavs?
Yeah, the Knicks and the Bulls are in a tank off for Zion Williamson.
100%.
They're going down, the Knicks tonight, Tony.
Out of time, trying to do better the next time, and I'm Tony Kornheiser.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. You can get the PTI podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcasts.
Jason Locken for us. Shout out. Good job.
Yeah, how's that answer?